If you're into FPV, then there's a very good chance that you're also into 3D printing. And if you're not into 3D printing, then unfortunately, this video may not be for you. No, wait, that's going to be terrible for my analytics if you click away right now. So if you're not into 3D printing yet, check out this cool video, which has a whole bunch of awesome 3D prints that can enhance your life as an FPV pilot. In fact, even if you don't have a 3D printer, you could just get somebody else to print them for you. I'm Joshua Bardwell, and you're going to learn something today. Before we get into this list, I have to thank Hero Psycho is his handle, and he is one of the moderators on my Discord server, and he has collected this list of super helpful 3D prints for people who are into FPV. As I said in the intro, if you're into 3D printing, then you could just download these files right now and print some of these things off immediately. If you're not into 3D printing, it's pretty cool, and printers aren't too expensive. So, you know, you've got plenty of spare time and money to take up a whole nother fiddly hobby. Or you could just get somebody else to print them for you. Heck, you could even pay somebody to print them for you. I've got a roundup, a shootout of the top 3D printing services for FPV where you can just order prints. I'll put a link to that down in the video description when you're done watching this video. You can check that one out if you want to know where to order from. But let's get into the list of 3D prints. And as you would expect, there are links to these all down in the video description, so you can check them out yourself. Let's just start going through the list. And the very first one is going to be this Fat Shark DJI FPV goggles diopter lens adapter. If, like me, you wear glasses and you have the DJI system, you probably just wear your glasses underneath the DJI goggles. And depending on the glasses you've got, that may work, but it is a little bit annoying. I've actually been using these. I printed these out and have been using them for a while, and I can comment on them. They work really well. I had some Fat Shark lens inserts that I wasn't using, and I stuck them inside my DJI goggles. They work. But I will say, they are thick enough that when you put your goggles up on your head or your forehead, they really dig in. At least they did for me. So I've actually stopped using them because I found that annoying enough, and I just leave my goggles on underneath, which is also kind of annoying. Frankly, there are professional corrective lenses you can get for DJI goggles. I'll put a link to those down in the video description as well, but they cost money. Well, technically these Fat Shark lenses also cost money. They were custom cut lenses, but since I already had them, it didn't cost me anything to do a 3D print and try them out. If you don't already have lenses for your Fat Shark goggles, just order custom-made lenses for your DJI goggles and you're good to go. Okay, moving on. Next up is this DJI digital FPV goggle screen protector. And no, these will not all relate to DJI goggles. Please stay around for if you're into analog. And if you have FPV goggles, you know that getting the sun in the goggles can burn the screens. And if you didn't know that, you need to know that. It only takes a few seconds, like probably not 2 seconds, but maybe 5 or 10 seconds of sun exposure into your lenses to burn your screens and destroy them. And I've seen more than one person who just got their DJI goggles and just doesn't know they have a freaking sticker on the lens saying don't let the sun get into the lens. But I think a lot of people don't realize that even like the sun shining into a window, if it's direct sunlight, can do it. Or if you're under a tree and it's kind of dappled sunlight, but then there's a break in the tree, in the branches, and one good sunbeam hits those goggles. So anytime you've got your goggles, have them on your forehead, have them facing the ground, have them covered up in your bag. Always play it safe. Never just set them down and walk away. But if you've got this goggle screen protector, it could help. And it even has a way to hold the antennas. If you have to take the antennas off when you put them away, if you haven't like replaced your antennas with stubbies, which a lot of people do. Here we've got oh my God, another DJI one. Please don't go, analog people. We'll get into the other stuff soon. This is an antenna holder for the Caddx Vista. It's a very generic sort of thing. It can probably work on a lot of different frames. You're going to print it out of TPU, so it'll have some flex. And it's my favorite way of mounting the Caddx Vista antenna, which is just to sort of, you could even take like a cutter and cut down that tube so it opens up. It doesn't look like it prints that way. But then you just slide the Caddx Vista antenna in there and put a couple zip ties around it to hold it in place, or you just jam it down in there if you're in the middle of a new build, and you can do that. Really great way to hold it. Chris Rosser might say that there's too much resonance because it's too floppy, but that's a topic for another day. Here we've got a screen cover for the ISDT BG-8S Batco Smart Battery Checker. This is actually my favorite battery checker. They are not cheap. What are they going for these days? They are, oh look, there's my video. I did a review of these a while back when I first got them in 2017. Well, they're $30. That's a lot for a battery checker, but it is extremely easy to use, extremely full featured, and it is accurate. That's the key. A lot of these battery checkers, they're kind of not accurate. This one can even be calibrated the same way you calibrate an ISDT charger. I've got a video about how to do that, and I'll put that down in the video description. If you suspect your charger isn't reading right, like you've tested it against a multimeter and you want to calibrate it, there's a way to do that. So it's kind of expensive, but it's a really, really good battery checker. And if you do have it, you probably don't want the screen to get all scratched up, or if you're like me, you just don't give a crap and you just scratch it up and you're just like, screw it, I'll use it. Here is a nice 3D printed cover for it, if that's what you're into. Moving on. Here's the 3D printed cover for your Hobbymate or HOTA D6 Duo. Like, they could be portable. This helps keep them from getting scratched up. Or if you're like me, you just don't give a crap. Moving on. Here, now this is really cool. I may print this. I'm really tempted by this because you can't see, but my wire is just hanging in a big spool in the back, on the back of my shelf, and it's a big mess. This is pretty freaking slick. And one of the things that's slick about it is it's completely modular. So you can have it as wide as you need it to be. Holds those wire spools. And in fact, it looks like it's even got a built-in spool. It doesn't take your existing spools. You spool your wire onto it. So there'll be a little bit of work involved with moving the spool over, but I guess that's probably not the end of the world. That's really, really freaking slick. I like that a lot. Now, how does it hold the wire? It'd be even better if it had some like way to kind of retain the wire, little tab or something. Because I mean, he's got the wire all neatly laid in there. But is it actually going to do that, or is it just going to go blah, 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 blah? I don't know. Good question. What's holding it in there? What's holding the wire in there? I don't think anything is. Oh, well, it's 3D printed. You could just modify it. Pretty slick. Now, speaking of slick things, this is a Crossfire Nano TPU holder, but not just for Crossfire, because I think there's a bunch of these things. What this for a lot of different receivers. I don't think he just makes them for Crossfire. But what it is a way of mounting your Crossfire receiver, and it basically folds open. It prints flat and folds over, and you can mount it on 30 by 30. You can mount it on 30 by 30. Where's a 20 by 20? He's got a 20 by 20 mount. He's got various, here's a mount for whatever receiver. Here's a plain old mount that just folds over. There's a whole bunch of different ways of doing this, but the thing that they have in common is that they all just fold over the receiver. They leave the bind button accessible. You're going to print it in clear TPU, and you'll be able to see the LEDs. Don't need heat shrink or anything like that. It both mounts and secures the receiver in a very, very clever way. Now these look like they're only Crossfire. I think he also made some for Ghost and Express LRS. I don't think he just did Crossfire. So yeah, here's a tracer antenna mount, same principle. Immortal T mount. Yeah, really slick. So really cool way to mount your antenna or your receiver. And it's easy to print because they print flat and then they fold over. So if you have a little bit of trouble with overhangs or stuff like that, then these are going to be really easy to print. Very cool. I need to print this. I got a lap RF and I need a stand for it. I got to print that. Yeah. Here we've got a Tango 2 module bay protector. If you don't like the exposed pins on the back of your Tango, well, first of all, if you've installed the module bay on the back of your Tango 2 and then you're worried about the pins being exposed because you don't have a module plugged in, here is a module bay protector. I guess this could work for any light module, probably. That's pretty nice. Here is TBS Tango 2 lanyard hook and stick guard ends combo. So it will both act as a lanyard hook, which the Tango 2 doesn't have by default. And if you have the Tango 2 Pro with the folding stick guards, or the folding sticks, when you fold the sticks, it'll keep the sticks. I wish you'd show it folded. There's no photos of it folded. Seems like you could have done that. Well, who might have complained? It's free. Yeah, it'll keep the sticks from touching and scratching up the plastic. Pretty slick. Here's a good old SMA spinner nut to help you get your SMAs good and tight. Don't over tighten them. You can damage them, but yeah. If you have a TS100 or any of the other similar styles of soldering irons, portable soldering irons. This is a very, very cool case for it. And it's cooler than it might look at first. It's completely modular, so you can print different versions of the two halves of the case depending on how you want it to be. These things here, are these also printable? Has he also got thing files for the bobbins? Let me check that. These bobbins, it does look like that bobbin is printed, but I've also seen people just use regular sewing bobbins. I'm not to have a little bit of solder. See these bobbins here, you can have a little bit of solder. Here is a tool holder. You can see how that works. It does look like it's printable. Not sure about that. That's supposed to be a little bobbin of solder, maybe a little bit of rosin core solder, extra tips there. So really, really cool box. If you've got one of these, this is just a ball bearing, which is using as the soldering iron holder, so you don't melt your freaking box. Maybe print this out of PETG or another high temp, just in case the heat gets to be enough. I don't know. Here we've got a printable micro SD card organizer, and I have to say, I love these. I have literally 3 of these right now. One for my 16 gig cards that I use for Blackbox, one for my 32 and 64 gig cards that I use for GoPro, and this is for cards that have footage on them that I need to not erase or lose. So anything in here, do not use it. Now I buy these off of Amazon. For example, this is the exact thing that I've purchased. It's about $6 for one, and they do wear out over time. The plastic wears out and the tabs break off, so I've had to buy 2 or 3 of them in the few years I've been using it. I think they're really good. Obviously, if you have a 3D printer, you might be thinking, well, why wouldn't I just print it at home? This is a fairly advanced print, I think. I mean, all these fine details look really good when you have it in CAD, but when you actually go to print it, look at these little overhangs and tabs. I think you're going to need to have your printer fairly well tuned to get good results. And these results look great. Like, I don't know how did they do it? Are these overhangs? This looks like the first layer right here. So it looks like this was printed with this face down, and then everything else was an overhang. But like, how do you do? I don't know how this was printed. I think this is a really tricky print. So perhaps it might just be better to spend $5 and buy one. But it's a really, really good way to organize your SD cards. Here's a Tiny Whoop case and battery holder. Those of you who fly Tiny Whoops, you're familiar with this. This one's really nice. This one has been picked by Hirosaiko as like his favorite because it's got, I guess, because it's got these battery things around the side, holds your Tiny Whoop. Yeah, and you got various different versions. There's a version for fat batteries, stackable, etc. So pretty slick. For those of you who build your own power supply out of HP Generation 8 rack mount power supplies, here's a printable cover. This still allows some airflow, but it covers up the exposed, here's for a double stack if you're doing a 24 volt version. Yeah, it just covers up those exposed tabs while still letting the wires come out. And yeah, just live dangerously like I do. What's going to happen if you short circuit it? It's got protection. Anyway, for those of you who have Shark HDO2 and you are annoyed that your focus adjustment is constantly getting bumped, these are focus protectors. How do they attach? You're just going to stick them on with double-sided tape? How are you going to do it? Yeah, double-sided tape. Well, that's a little annoying. I mean, there are various ways you could do it. You could use some kind of adhesive. I guess double-sided tape is fine, but it's going to keep them from getting bumped. But then, will they stay in place? I mean, just shaking around, will they move? Will the IPD move? Yeah. I don't know if this one's a winner, but it's worth a try. Lastly, we've got this FPV drone wall motor hanger. This is really clever. And by the way, this is by Mute FPV, who has a really, really good YouTube channel. Check out Mute FPV on YouTube. His whole shtick is he doesn't talk. I don't know what that would be like. But yeah, just quick information with no talking, just presented visually. How are you supposed to listen to that while you're doing other things and not paying attention? Maybe it's not for you. I hang things on my wall using 3M command hooks. In fact, I made a video about it. But, yeah, I use these the large utility hooks, And I just use a rubber band, which goes around the motor, around the leg, and holds them in place. Now he's come up with something even more clever because his version does not require a rubber band. It just attaches to the motor. You mount it on the wall with a screw, and it attaches to the motor, and you just hang the quad by the motor. That's really brilliant. I haven't printed a bunch of these. I like the fact that with the 3M command hooks, they attach with this sticky piece that you can easily remove and it doesn't damage your wall. And so I kind of like the fact that they hold all my quads up without having to put screws in the wall. But if you want a little bit more of an elegant and attractive solution, this is it. And it doesn't just work with like 22 sized motors. It'll work with micro motors too. They're all round, right? I mean, I guess there's a maximum size beyond which it wouldn't work, but I don't really know what that is. Does it say? Nah, it doesn't say. Anyway, that's going to do it. Now I know you are thinking right now, but wait, there's this really great 3D print that you overlooked. Of course there is. There's a million awesome 3D prints for FPV, and I would like to encourage you to leave links down in the video description below to Thingiverse or wherever that you could get the STLs, and I will take a look, and I will go ahead and heart and thumbs up the comments for ones that stand out to me, at least for the next few hours or maybe days. Obviously, I'm not going to do it forever. So please don't feel offended if you leave a link and I don't heart or thumb up. But I'll be hanging around in the comments at least for a few hours after the video gets out, and I will definitely try and bubble those up to the top of the comments. And then hopefully this can just become a resource for people to find these great 3D prints. Thanks again to Hero Psycho. He's one of the moderators on my Discord server, which is one of the privileges that you get if you join my Patreon, which is linked also down in the video description. For as little as $2 a month, you can feel great about supporting the content you consume, and you can hang out with all my other patrons. It's a pretty wholesome and helpful environment over there on the Discord server. And that's where this list comes from. So you could have been looking at this list for the last few months. He's been saying, hey man, maybe you want to make a video about this stuff for months. I mean, he hasn't, not like in an annoying way, but I've been way slower about getting this information out there than I should have been. That's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Happy flying. Do you see this baby? Isn't he cute? Hit the subscribe button. Join my Patreon. Use my affiliate links. Or just keep watching videos. That's better than nothing.
Google Gaga, subscribe to my daddy.